Well, then, an inspirational in some ways story like Tony Atlas. Then you go to the other side of the coin with, and he may be a blip on a lot of wrestling fans' screens, especially in America. They might remember him a bit in Japan, but the guy whose real name was Tony Halm, but
Mhm.
they may know him as Ludvig Borga. You told me you were going to do an episode. I said, "What was he, a wrestler for 15 minutes?" I mean, I forgot that I had managed him. Remember that? You had to
Yeah,
remind me I managed
right.
him the one, right?
Right.
And he was just a quiet guy sat in the corner with the weird look, and he had the, and I guess he was that generation's Gunther, except he couldn't work and he couldn't talk. But
Yeah.
Vince loved that, U-boat captain look. But now that you have done the episode and you told me some of the stuff that this guy was into away from wrestling,
Yeah,
this is just one of those ones. It's a heck of a story. This
it is.
guy was he was shady in a number of areas.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a wild story and one that I can't believe we didn't do sooner. It's been one that a lot of people have recommended to me, and we would look into it and try and, I just can't believe we didn't pull the trigger on it sooner. But he basically, Ludvig Borga, I mean, I think he was in the WWF for a year, maybe at the most.
I think they probably signed him for a year, and
Yeah.
that's when he left when it was up.
Yeah, right. And so, fans might remember him. He does have a Hasbro action figure. I think it's one of the more valuable ones too, as a frame of reference. But basically,
Most of the run ended up in a landfill, probably. So the ones remaining are very valuable.
Right, exactly. But yeah, he was booked as a Finnish heel, a heel from Finland, the Hellraiser from Helsinki. What you say in the episode, Vince will, if we don't have an issue with a country, Vince will find one, and
those goddamn Finns, they've stabbed us in the back again.
Right. But one of the big moments with him in the WWF behind the scenes is they all figured out that he had an SS tattoo. He had a Nazi SS tattoo on his calf. And that was quite alarming to a lot of folks. And I think it was, okay, we didn't know this. We didn't do the background check on him. And I think it was about
when they do the background check, does it include a list of your tattoos?
Yeah, a cavity search.
Yeah, but that's what I was trying to remember when we were talking about this last week. And then one of the listeners, goddamn, how old am I?
The readers.
One of the listeners sent a picture on Twitter. I was reading on Twitter, and it's what I was doing. And the listener sent the picture.
Right.
And it was, the SS lightning bolt thing with the eagle around it and everything, like you would see on Hermann Goering or whatever.
Right.
And where is Finland in relation to Germany? I don't mean to derail your story, but
I don't know. It's somewhere around there, isn't it?
Somewhere in the area, I guess. Maybe
Yeah.
But nevertheless, first they saw the tattoo and they're like, no, we gotta cover that up.
Yep, and I think any kind of reason at that point to get rid of him, because he also was just very, he wasn't easy to get along with. He was confrontational, cantankerous. He didn't have a very good reputation among the boys. And then, so, I mean, for many, that's kind of where his story stops and starts, but for our episode, it was looking, we actually partnered up with a documentary crew in Finland who had done a story on Tony Halme over there, because he's a much more infamous person, obviously in his home country. Like he's everybody knows who he is, kind of thing.
And apparently they're not real warm on him either.
No, they're not. But there was a time where they were. So he comes from Finland. His sort of background is, he grew up as a very bitter and full of resentment kid, and joined gangs, and was kind of violent in the streets, beating people up, sort of thing. Very confrontational kind of guy. And he, you'll love this. His inspiration for wanting to come to America, the person that inspired him to want to be a celebrity was Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver. when he saw.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, right, exactly. So he saw something in Taxi Driver that made him want to move to America. So he moved to America, went to the Gold's Gym sort of route and met people there and were like, hey, you'd be good for wrestling. You got the body and the whole thing. And so he actually wound up wrestling in Herb Abrams' UWF first, I believe. So he was the Viking for all the Herb Abrams fans out there. And then, he got WWF and all that. But when he was let go, he went back to Finland sort of in pursuit of, local stardom and did a number of things. He became like they have like their whole equivalent to the American gladiators, and so he was a gladiator. And then he made his own, I think he recorded his own album. It's terrible.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, he was trying to become famous, and he basically, I think he wrote an autobiography, which most of it is like obviously fabricated, but he would say these very controversial, racist, divisive rhetoric stuff that he was starting to put out into the media and on television appearances, and it gained a lot of traction for being very controversial. And then there were politicians at the time who were part of, you could say, the sort of Nazi-ish party in Finland. There was a growing, anti-immigration sentiment going on in Finland, and they saw an opportunity to have someone.
Wait a minute. You mean all this shit's happened before in Finland? Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the parallels are pretty uncanny, actually. That's one of the most illuminating things, is how prescient this story is. But anyway, and basically they brought him into politics as someone who would run for parliament, and he was with that sort of the sort of troublemaker party, and lo and behold, he won in a landslide victory. He's actually one of the most, I think he's still, looking back into like the Finnish electoral history, he's one of the people that's been voted for like the most out of any. Yeah. And so he came into power.
Mass hysteria gripped Finland,
yes.
And Ludvig Borga,
yes,
was elected to what was his title or office?
Parliament. Well, I don't know exactly how it works over there, but it's like
a parliamentarian
or whatever it is. But he yeah. And things didn't work out well for him. The hubris, the ego, out of control, drugs, trying to keep up the body. And everything. And then it obviously ends in a very grim ending for himself there. But it's a fascinating story. It's not so much a wrestling story, but it is, because wrestling and politics are so linked in a lot of ways. And I think it's I think it's one of the more fascinating episodes we've done, actually. And just looking at, his trajectory after his career in wrestling and the parallels that are there. So yeah, it's definitely one of the ones to not miss.